going their separate ways after a marriage spanning nearly 3 decades. People confirmed their breakup October 2nd. The actress's rep telling the outlet they are living apart and taking a break from their marriage, adding, "There is no legal proceedings at this time."
But wait, this isn't just another celebrity breakup story. Behind this so-called perfect Hollywood marriage lies betrayal, prison time, and a scandal that shook the entire entertainment industry. From red carpets to courtrooms, Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli's fall from grace will leave you shocked. So what really happened to this power couple? Let's uncover the truth. Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli, for almost 3 decades they were seen as one of Hollywood's golden couples. She was the beloved actress who won America's heart on the hit show Full House, and he was the fashion designer who turned his Mossimo clothing line into a multi-million-dollar brand. Together, they seemed unstoppable. A perfect marriage, a picture-perfect family, and 2 beautiful daughters, Isabella Rose and Olivia Jade. From the outside, their lives looked like a dream come true. But sometimes, dreams hide the darkest secrets. On October 2nd, that dream officially shattered. News broke that Loughlin and Mossimo had separated. Their representatives confirmed the couple had decided to live apart and take a break from their marriage. No legal proceedings yet, but the meaning was clear. After nearly 30 years together, the love story had come to an end. For their fans, it was heartbreaking. For Hollywood, it was shocking. But for those who remembered their past, it almost felt inevitable. Because this wasn't just another breakup. This wasn't about 2 people quietly going their separate ways. This was the final act of a scandal that had haunted them for years. The same scandal that sent them from glamorous red carpets to prison cells. The same scandal that forever changed how the world saw their family. Their separation was not just about lost love, it was about the price of choices, the weight of shame, and the destruction of a carefully crafted image. Imagine it, Loughlin and Mossimo on magazine covers, holding hands, smiling in designer outfits, raising their daughters in luxury homes. They seemed flawless. But behind those smiles, behind the glossy photographs, cracks had begun to show. Whispers of fights, stress, and constant pressure filled the air. The shadow of the college admissions scandal never left their lives. It followed them everywhere, like a ghost they couldn't escape. And in the end, it may have been too much for their marriage to survive. But how did it all begin? How did this picture-perfect love story turn into one of the most infamous scandals in Hollywood history? To understand their fall, we first need to go back to where it all started. Because once upon a time, Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli weren't surrounded by controversy. They were just 2 people who fell in love, who built a life together, and who looked like they had it all. And that's where this story truly begins. Long before their names were splashed across headlines for scandal, Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli were simply 2 ambitious stars carving their place in the world. Laurie was the girl next door America adored. She had already made her mark as Rebecca Donaldson on the family sitcom Full House, where her wholesome charm and warm smile made her a household favorite. Off-screen, she carried that same image, sweet, talented, down-to-earth. Mossimo, on the other hand, came from a different world. He was the bold, confident entrepreneur who built his clothing line, Mossimo, from scratch. By the mid-90s, his brand was stocked in major retailers and his fortune was growing fast. He was the kind of man who could walk into a room and own it, and he caught Laurie's attention in a way few ever had. They married in 1997, in what seemed like the perfect union of Hollywood sparkle and business brilliance. Together they built a family and a reputation that people admired. Their daughters Isabella Rose and Olivia Jade became the jewels of their empire. The family appeared at red carpet events, posed for glossy magazine spreads, and represented what many people thought was the American dream. Laurie balanced acting and motherhood, Mossimo ran his business empire, and their daughters grew up in privilege and glamour. To outsiders, everything about their life was enviable. A strong marriage, beautiful kids, wealth, success, and love. They were the couple others wanted to be. But every fairy tale comes with shadows. And behind the glitter, pressure was building. Hollywood is not kind to women who grow older, and Laurie faced the reality of fewer roles and a fading spotlight. Mossimo's fashion empire, once booming, also began to shift under new ownership and corporate changes. And then came the challenge of raising daughters in the spotlight. In a world obsessed with social media, Isabella and especially Olivia Jade became celebrities in their own right. Olivia's YouTube channel grew fast, turning her into a social media influencer. She had brand deals, millions of followers, and the kind of fame that can be both a blessing and a curse. Loughlin and Mossimo wanted to give their daughters the best of everything: fame, opportunity, education. But sometimes, wanting the best can lead to making the worst decisions. And that's where the seeds of their downfall were planted. The love story that began with romance and laughter, that grew into wealth and family life, was slowly shifting. The cracks were invisible to the public eye, but inside their world, the pressure to maintain perfection was overwhelming. The expectations were enormous: keep the image, protect the family, and stay at the top no matter what. For Loughlin and Mossimo, it wasn't enough to simply be successful. They wanted their daughters to shine too, to have doors opened for them that might otherwise stay closed. And so, choices were made. Choices that would change everything. What looked like the perfect family portrait was about to be ripped apart. And soon, the names Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli would no longer be linked with Hollywood glamour, but with a scandal so big it shocked the entire country. A scandal that would expose lies, deception, and the desperate lengths some parents go to for their children's future. The love story was still there, but now it was tangled in secrets that could not stay hidden forever. The choices Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli made for their daughters would soon explode into one of the biggest scandals in Hollywood history. It all started quietly, with whispers about wealthy parents bending rules to get their children into elite universities. But in 2019, the whispers became headlines when the FBI announced Operation Varsity Blues, a nationwide investigation into a massive college admissions scheme. Dozens of parents, coaches, and middlemen were exposed, and right at the center of it all were Loughlin and Mossimo. The accusations were shocking. Prosecutors claimed the couple had paid $500,000 to secure their daughter's admission into the University of Southern California, but this wasn't just about money. It was about lies. Isabella and Olivia Jade were presented as athletic recruits for USC's crew team, even though neither of them had ever rowed a single day in their lives. Fake athletic profiles were created, complete with staged photographs to make it appear as though the girls were competitive athletes. It was deception at the highest level, and it was all done to guarantee a spot at one of the country's top universities. When the story broke, it was like a bomb went off. The media couldn't get enough of it. Loughlin, America's sweetheart from Full House, suddenly had her face plastered across tabloids and news channels as a criminal defendant. Mossimo, the fashion mogul, was dragged alongside her. The perfect couple who once graced red carpets were now walking into courtrooms with grim expressions, facing charges of wire and mail fraud. The public reaction was brutal. People were furious, not just because laws had been broken, but because it highlighted the privilege and entitlement of the wealthy. While ordinary families struggled to pay tuition or prayed for scholarships, the rich were accused of literally buying their children's futures. Loughlin and Mossimo initially tried to fight back. They pleaded not guilty, insisting that they were innocent. For months, headlines speculated about whether they could actually beat the case. But the evidence piled up: emails, bank transfers, photographs. Eventually, the truth caught up with them. Loughlin pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges and was sentenced to 2 months in prison. Mossimo Giannulli received 5 months. They paid fines, did community service, and became a public example of what happens when privilege crosses the line into crime. But the scandal didn't just end with their sentences. It ripped through their family life. Olivia Jade, once one of YouTube's rising stars, lost brand deals overnight. She was mocked online, dragged through memes, and faced relentless criticism. Isabella avoided the spotlight, but the damage was done. The girls were no longer seen as innocent victims, but as the beneficiaries of lies. For Loughlin and Mossimo, the prison sentences may have ended, but the judgment from the public never really went away. Every time their names were mentioned, the scandal followed. It was a shadow they couldn't shake, and it haunted their every step. The couple tried to present a united front. When Loughlin was released after her 2 months behind bars, Mossimo was still serving his time, and their daughters were waiting. They smiled for the cameras, acted as though they had weathered the storm. But behind closed doors, the pressure was mounting. Their reputation was shattered, their careers were damaged, and the world never looked at them the same way again. The college admissions scandal had rewritten their story, and no matter how much they tried to move forward, the past clung to them. And that was just the beginning of the fallout. Because scandals don't just punish careers, they punish relationships, families, and trust. The love story that began as a Hollywood dream was now being tested in the harshest way possible. The scandal may have ended with guilty pleas and prison time, but the fallout was only beginning. For Loughlin and Mossimo, life after Operation Varsity Blues was nothing like the one they once knew. The cameras no longer celebrated them, they hunted them. Every outing became a headline, every appearance a reminder of their shame. For two people who had once thrived in the glow of fame, living in the shadow of scandal was crushing. Their daughters, Isabella and Olivia Jade, bore the weight too. Isabella slipped away from the public eye, avoiding cameras and red carpets, trying to live quietly. Olivia Jade, on the other hand, could not escape. Her YouTube channel, once filled with beauty tutorials and glamorous routines, became a battlefield of criticism. Brands dropped her, fans turned against her, and late-night hosts turned her into the punchline of jokes. She became a symbol of privilege and dishonesty, even when she tried to rebuild her image. In interviews, Olivia spoke about learning from mistakes, but the internet never forgets. For years, every attempt to move forward was haunted by the past. Inside the family, the tension was undeniable. Sources close to them whispered about constant arguments, blame, and stress. Loughlin and Mossimo had stood united during the trial, but once the spotlight faded, the cracks began to show. Resentment grew like poison. Did Mossimo blame Loughlin for pushing too hard? Did Loughlin resent Mossimo for the choices they made together? Nobody on the outside knew for sure, but behind closed doors, the marriage that had once looked unshakable was under siege. They had fought the law as a team, but surviving the silence afterward proved harder. And then there was Hollywood. Loughlin, the once beloved TV star, struggled to find her way back. Offers dried up. Producers hesitated. She was no longer America's sweetheart, she was the actress who went to prison. That label followed her everywhere. Mossimo faced the same battle in business. His name, once tied to fashion success, was now linked with scandal. His reputation as a designer couldn't compete with the infamy of his crime. For two people who had built their identities on success, failure was a heavy burden. Friends who once admired them now kept their distance. The industry that celebrated them turned cold. The couple leaned on each other, or at least they tried. But as the years passed, the weight of shame, the public judgment, and the fractured family bonds became too much. What was once a glamorous empire now felt like a cage. The pressure that began with whispers of scandal had grown into silence filled with regret. It was clear that the scandal had not only destroyed their reputations, it had taken something even bigger. It had taken the foundation of their marriage. And soon, the world would see that the love story of Loughlin and Mossimo had reached its breaking point. The breaking point finally arrived, and when it did, it was as if the world had been waiting for it. On October 2nd, the news was confirmed after nearly 3 decades together. Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli had separated. They weren't rushing into legal divorce, but the statement was clear. They were living apart, taking a break, and their marriage was no longer what it once was. For fans who had followed their story from the glamour of red carpets to the shame of courtroom doors, it felt like the inevitable conclusion to years of tension and scandal. The announcement spread like wildfire. Headlines called it the end of a Hollywood love story, tabloids dissected every word of the statement, and gossip blogs asked the same question everyone was thinking: was this breakup because of the college scandal, or was there something more? Whispers of financial strain, emotional distance, and even betrayal floated through the media. Nobody could say for sure, but the timing spoke volumes. Surviving prison was one thing. Surviving public humiliation was another. But surviving each other? That proved impossible. Imagine what their home must have been like in those final months. Two people carrying the weight of judgment every time they stepped outside. Two parents trying to protect daughters who had been thrust into the harshest spotlight. Two former power players now trapped in silence, no longer sure if they were fighting the world together or fighting each other. Love that once seemed unshakable was now buried under layers of blame, regret, and exhaustion. And in the end, they chose distance over togetherness. For Hollywood, it was both shocking and predictable. Here was a couple who had once seemed indestructible, brought down not just by scandal but by the slow erosion of trust. For Loughlin, the separation meant a chance to focus on rebuilding her image, her career, maybe even herself. For Mossimo, it meant turning inward, away from the spotlight, back into the quiet of his private life. They were no longer a team, no longer the perfect pair. They had become two individuals, surviving in the aftermath of a storm that never really ended. From wedding vows to courtroom sentences, from glamorous beginnings to scandalous endings, Loughlin and Mossimo's story had it all. But the separation was the most human chapter of all. Because behind the fame, the money, and the headlines, they were just two people whose marriage couldn't survive the weight of everything they had endured. And so, the love story that once seemed unshakable finally came to an end. But separation is not the final chapter, it is only the beginning of what comes next. For Lori Loughlin, the question now is whether she can rebuild the career she lost. Hollywood is a place of second chances, but it is also a place with a long memory. She has tried to return to acting, making small appearances, slowly stepping back into the industry. But every time her name is mentioned, the shadow of the college admissions scandal rises again. Can she ever escape that label? Can she ever be seen again as the actress America once adored, or will she forever be remembered as the woman who went to prison? For Mossimo Giannulli, the road is different. The fashion designer who once built a brand that dominated stores now lives a quieter life. His business reputation took a hit, and though he still carries the name that once brought him success, the scandal overshadows everything. He has chosen to stay out of the spotlight, avoiding the cameras, avoiding the interviews, avoiding the noise. But silence does not erase the past. People still wonder, will he attempt to come back, or is his story finished? Then there are the daughters, Isabella Rose and Olivia Jade. For them, the scandal was both a curse and a strange kind of opportunity. Isabella has chosen a private life, stepping away from the attention. Olivia Jade, on the other hand, has tried to turn controversy into resilience. She returned to YouTube, attempted to reclaim her influencer career, and even appeared on television, speaking about what she and her family went through. Some people sympathize with her, others continue to criticize, but she refuses to disappear. For Olivia, the scandal may have defined her, but it did not silence her. As for Lori and Mossimo together, the future remains uncertain. Will their separation end in divorce? Will time heal old wounds, bringing them back together? Or will they remain apart, each rebuilding their lives in different directions? Nobody knows for sure, but one thing is certain, their story has already been written into Hollywood history. Not as the perfect love story they once projected, but as a cautionary tale of how fame, fortune, and desperate decisions can destroy even the strongest-looking foundations. From television screens to fashion empires, from the heights of success to the lowest of scandals, Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli lived a story larger than life. And now, as they step into separate futures, the world will keep watching, wondering what comes next. Because in Hollywood, the end of one story is only ever the beginning of another. So what do you think? Was it the scandal that truly destroyed their marriage, or was their love already gone long before? The cameras may move on, but the questions will remain.